Good afternoon. So, strategic planning in a servant leadership culture. So, I'm going to try and do this in 15 minutes. So, I'm going to have to move quick, and I can give you more details if you want to reach out. There'll be information at the end. I'll try not to talk fast, but move through subjects quickly. So, I thought it'd be really important just to build awareness for organizations that may not have the size or the resources from experience or people to develop a strategic plan and give you some awareness so you can actually execute this and start to bring your business to the next level. And for organizations that do it, there may be some tips and guidance in here that help you improve it, or it may just validate that you're doing it well. So to do strategic planning, you need to engage your entire team, both for feedback and execution, and the executive team in the middle needs to hold themselves accountable to the path and the results. So the image that you see on my right is just simply, before you engage in strategic planning, do a health check on your organization and who you are as a company in developing people, making them better, hearing them out, getting their feedback, acting on it, closing gaps, recognizing employees. And I usually do a servant leadership training where I take an entire leadership team through how to do a proper weekly one-on-one personal development strategies, how to lead by wandering around, how to do a proper performance review, and how to do a connection meeting. And again, I have those in other videos that you can search for, but keep in mind that's the context behind this, is you have an organization that is heavily focused on developing your people and the leadership team taking accountability to serve. So the first thing before I'd start a plan, I would tell you, if you're a new president, a new department leader, an owner doing this for the first time, take at least 90 days to get some context, do some behavioral observation, get out in the field, talk to some customers, talk to your team. So when that feedback comes in, you have a little bit of context. Check out your market, see your competitors, review all your inventory, and build some level of context by observing and asking questions and not by judging. Then engage your team early and prep them. So what do you expect out of your team? I like to engage a full organization behind a plan. My perspective is I don't understand leaders who shut that avenue off. No one knows your customer better than them, and no one knows your faults and your strengths better than them. Now keep in mind, you'll have the context, and later on in the process, you'll see where you get to govern this exercise while engaging your team. So I simply ask the team 3 questions. 1, where are we strong? Where are we weak? And what would you do differently? That's it. It's all I want to know from the team at this point. And when I say the team, that is the full team underneath the departmental director. And I ask them to engage their team in a little mini strategic planning process that just answers those questions. Then we bring in that team, those directors who now have that feedback from the front line, and we create the landscape. What are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And again, I usually keep a strategic plan in a very simple Excel template. On the first tab is going to be my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Where are we really good that we can leverage it and continue to grow the company doing it well? Where are we weak that we need to either stop doing or fix how we do it because it's impacting our business? Where are there opportunities presenting themselves in the marketplace that we can go and capture? And where are there competitive threats, customer threats, landscape operational threats that we need to be cognizant of? And now we know from the team's perspective, and as an executive team, having filtered that feedback and condensed it, where we stand as an organization, where we're good, where we're weak, and where we can go. Next, any good plan starts with a great fiscal plan, and I call that setting the goalposts. So, and then the checkpoints. And so if you decide that you want to increase your earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, your EBITDA, and you know that's one of your KPIs, there's going to be a bunch of other KPIs that are going to influence that. So how do you increase your bottom line? Well, you reduce your cost of goods, you increase your revenue, you decrease your cost of acquisition in marketing, as an example. You go into multiple locations if you're a multi-unit provider. So one of your measurements may be, hey, we've got 11 stores this year. We want 37 next year. And boy, 37 at an average transaction value of X, or per day over 37 stores equals X, and that drives your revenue and changes all those individual KPIs. So basically, it's your ability to set your scoreboard. We're not talking behaviors right now, but we are going to look at the score to see if we're winning. And to just go back a step, Step 3 and 4, after you've got all that feedback through your departmental leaders that you're going to bring into strategic planning with your executive team, you're developing in that room. Okay. Then you're going to do the path. So now that executive team has full context. Your team, your customers, it's all made its way through the people you trust on your leadership team as well to execute that and get the feedback. And now you're going to figure out, okay, now that we know that, now that we know the goalposts, how are we going to get there? And you're going to ask all your departmental leaders to take accountability to setting their 2 to 3 strategies, very high level of how we're going to get there. So as an example, if you said we were going to open 27 more stores, and I'll take an industry that I haven't been in for over 2 decades, in clothing retail. If you said we're going to open up 27 stores, that was one of your goals. Well, the store operation manager is more than likely, or director or VP is going to have strategies very specifically aligned with those KPIs. And they're going to talk about high level, what's the path to get there. Next, you're going to get into tactics and sub-tactics. And you're going to identify as you bring the team back in now, depending on the size of your organization, obviously. But if you're small to medium, you can engage everybody. So they've told you where you're weak, where you're great, what your customer's saying. You've observed it yourself. You can trust all that feedback. Your executive team knows where you want to go. You've determined the path. Now you got to determine what you're going to do and how you're going to get there. And those are your tactics and sub-tactics. And what I challenge you to do is bring the team back in. Have the individual leader, now that you as the owner or CEO has signed off on this on your own executive planning day, develop the tactics. Report back to you on what's getting done, when it's going to get done, and who's doing it. We'll talk about how you put that into a mechanism that can be measured and trained and developed. But again, engage your team because they're on the way up and they're there with you through execution. And now they got to sign up to developing, the plan and delivering on it. And so again, get that buy-in now. In every good strategic planning template or plan, there are KPIs, there is timing, and there are champions. So again, remember, as you're developing your tactics, you should be focusing on SMART goals. There are multiple versions of SMART goals. I have adapted mine, whether I learned it from somewhere else. I refuse to change because I love it, and it'll really give you some detail. And it is not the one you see out there regularly if you Google it right now. But I believe SMART stands for the following. Specific. Okay, so it's going to be behavior-based. And I got to be able to know exactly what you're doing in your tactic. Measurable. That's your KPI, your key performance indicator. How do I measure whether what you're doing is working? Action-oriented. That's my A. So action-oriented. I need to see you doing something. And so I need to find out who is doing it, when they are doing it, and what are they doing. So again, action-oriented. It's going to be realistic. Listen, if you say you want to build 200 stores this year and your tactic is to open up 100 stores in Nova Scotia, if you know the real estate isn't there to do that and you know the market won't support it, that's not a realistic goal to put in your plan. And then lastly, it has to be time-bound. And so when are you getting it done? When is that tactic getting done? And when is the strategy getting done? So in the spreadsheet that you can barely read out kind of by design and kind of not, because there's no personal information of any company in there or any data, in your department with your strategies, if you look, you will see exactly what the tactic or sub-tactic is, what month it's supposed to get done, who is doing it, what is the measurable, and how did that measurable change over that month. Okay, and so it's very specific and easy to follow through. Making it stick. This is where most plans fall apart. A CEO will sit around the table and I guided this plan and look at me, and then their executive team comes back and tells them why they didn't get it done. And the CEO will either get impatient or accept the excuse. And what you need to do to make it stick is one, yes, have that monthly review with your senior management team, but it goes down a level further to set those senior managers up for success. And this goes back to the servant leadership philosophy. How do they communicate with their team on a regular basis? How are they reviewing their departmental plan with their team? How are they having engaging conversations that are behavior-based with open-ended questions to encourage feedback to close developmental deficiencies? Hey, Gina or John, they're not getting this done and they keep telling me next week. Why aren't they opening up so I can get the objections out of the way so we can get this task done that's so critical in our plan? So It's one thing for a CEO or an owner to sit around the table and say, look at me, I developed this great plan, I'm so smart, versus being truly a servant leader who can help leaders lead and help team members get better at what they do through those leaders so you can successfully deliver your plan. But again, monthly accountability, I'll go back a step. Monthly accountability is important for a senior management team. So you're constantly reviewing that plan under all those checkpoints, and each departmental leader is reporting out on the month. Here's my 3 strategies. Here's where we did a tactic. Here's where we didn't. And here's why. Next, one of the training packages that I showed at the beginning under the foundation of servant philosophy is critical to me is a weekly one-on-one. And in that weekly one-on-one, what you might want to do is start to engage some conversation around a strategic plan tactic if that individual has it. And so for me as a president, what I do with my VPs is I make sure on the 4th week of every month, before I bring them into that senior management team meeting, to not put them on the spot as I start to talk about their plan a week before for that month. Where are you at? What are you working on? How do I help you? And it falls in the guise of the 5-stage coaching program that I have in place that says, what'd you do last week? What are you working on this week? How do I help you with both of those? Here's what I observed. Here's a deficiency I'd like to coach you on that I observed. What do you need from me? Here's what I need from you. And all I do is implement the strategies back into that conversation. So it lives and it breathes and it's supportive by nature. So people get into the room and they win, not get into the room and get called out, because that accountability is coming. Celebrate their wins and coach the gaps. Again, plans succeed or fail based on behaviors and coaching. Serve. Don't be the senior leader who is very, very smart and can build a great plan, but doesn't invest in developing their team to be successful to actually execute on it. You see a lot of great leaders out there that have a great social media presence, and they're paying a third-party agency to sound really great. But when you peel back the covers and you talk to the team on whether they're being developed, heard, and set up for success, those things look very different. And that's not a criticism. That's actually a point to help you get unstuck. If your plans are being finished but not creating a result, there's a behavioral development gap. Whether that's your leadership team, whether that's the individuals and the leadership team isn't able to get them unstuck, or you've got the wrong players on the bus, whatever that looks like. Or what's happening is your plan is not getting done. Well, that's because instead of having the difficult conversations, because you have servant leaders on your leadership team, they're afraid to give you information you don't want to hear. And so they're going to be loyal and tell you everything you want to hear. And when you don't need to hear it, they're going to hide from it. And that's where your plans get stuck and excuses come up, because they're afraid to tell you what they need. That's it. Listen, this is something that normally takes me months as a leader. And when I say me, it's an entire team. The team does the work. I kind of paint the picture with them. They bring all the content and I hold myself accountable to creating the forum to allow them to do that, validating it because I'm going to hold myself accountable to the corporate result, and then giving them all the tools to succeed to achieve it. So again, I do this over months of prep work, as you saw from the first slide, and then usually a 2 to 3 day session, and then a full year of follow-up from a servant leader perspective and weekly one-on-ones and monthly senior management teams. So it's not as simple as 11 slides in less than 15 minutes. Having said that, if I can help you in any way, I'm sitting at home, I'm on the sidelines. The reason I'm doing this is I'm temporarily laid off because of what's going on. I hope to go back to where I was leading a company as a president. While I'm not, I'm going to try and learn some skills, and I've had some phenomenal conversations with a lot of you out there through LinkedIn, where you've brought me on to either help you. Again, not charging anything for this. You got me. I'm sitting at home. I want to stay engaged. So if I can help in any way, please do. But I've learned from you through that process. A lot of times you've brought me in to sit in on a board meeting or an executive meeting or a staff meeting to talk about strategic planning or servant leadership. I'm learning more, I think, than I'm giving. I hope that's not the case, but I just want you to know I'm taking away so much from getting a different perspective on where the gaps and strengths are in organizations. So I'm here. If I can help in any way, markpettipaut@hotmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Hope you all have a great day. It's Thursday.